Episode 232. After the game was over. The empty bottle was put on the table. Steven's cheeks were reddish. He panted, and his lips were red.
"I'm sorry for what happened the day before yesterday."
Then he walked towards the door. Miranda looked at his back and asked, "What are you doing?" No response. "I will go and check on him." She picked up her purse and went out. Drake felt as if his heart, full of sincerity, had been completely crushed into pieces by Steven's scheme. Holding his chest, he sat on the sofa, looking up at the ceiling with a desperate look. He asked sadly,
"Did you hear that?"
"What?" Serena played along.
Oh!
Drake sighed and wailed.
"My heart just broke."
Steven was walking very fast. When Miranda went out, she did not see him. She ran along the corridor towards the end of the passage and saw him entering the elevator. Steven was just stepping inside when she hurriedly pressed the button, and the elevator door was opened again. She panted a little, looked at him, and walked in. He drank a lot, all at once, so it had hit him quite quickly. In just a short while, his face had already become red. The elevator door opened and Steven wobbled out of the Grand Palace Hotel. The cool evening air hit him in the face. Miranda immediately went to support him and shouted, "Why did you drink that much if you can't drink? Is it worth it?" He did not answer, but held her hand, his amber-colored eyes fixed on her. But soon he closed his eyes.
"My head hurts."
"Of course it will!" Miranda barked at him and helped him to find his car. The whiskey was too strong. At this moment, even she was a bit shaky, and her mind was dizzy. Steven noticed her condition and took her car key.
"Don't drive. It will be dangerous. Take a taxi."
Then he hailed an empty taxi. When he sat inside, she was going to turn around and go back inside the hotel. Just when she was about to leave, she was pulled in. She exclaimed, and by the time she realized what had happened, the door was closed. Steven told the driver the address, which was Miranda's apartment. After paying for the car, he became more dizzy, and she was the same. She laid back on the seat and closed her eyes. Seeing the gate of the apartment where she lived, she felt a little embarrassed. How could she take Steven home? Strange.
"Go."
Steven took her hand. Although he was not walking steadily, he could still find the place. Once out of the elevator, he found Miranda's apartment door and reached into her bag to look for the key. She was a little dizzy. After watching him take out the key, she suddenly felt something was wrong. "You want to go in?"
"I paid the rent."
He smiled and pushed her inside. Her brain was so fuzzy that she followed his lead and fell right down onto the sofa when she saw it. However, in no time, Miranda felt something heavy on top of her. Opening her eyes, she saw Steven. His face was red, but his look was sober. She was a little embarrassed. Looking at him, she didn't know what to do. She gazed at him blankly. He leaned forward and kissed her. Then he laid down and rolled on the sofa with her in his arms. She was kissed suddenly, and suddenly sobered up and struggled. But he tightened his arms and pinned her thighs down with his legs. They were drunk. This whole thing was very similar to the first time they had done it. It was a similar drunken situation. Miranda resisted, but Steven's strength was not reduced by drunkenness. Instead, it increased. He pinned her down with his body and moved more and more wildly. Reaching into her navy jacket, he caressed her waist with his big hand, opened her dark blue coat and snuck in. gently rubbing her waist through her shirt. She was shattered, and her breathing quickened. Moving her legs, she was unable to wriggle free. Her head being such a mess, she felt she was not quite sober. She was a bad drinker with terrible tolerance for alcohol. Because she had worked for Jake for 3 years, she never had to drink on business occasions against her will. It was a miracle that she could pull herself through the strong whiskey she had gulped down earlier that evening. Stephen's face was getting more and more blurred, but the feeling on her body was getting clearer and clearer. He was touching her. She hated the fact that she liked it. Sensing her agreement, Stephen became more and more unscrupulous. Miranda felt like her body was ignited with flames. At the end, she could not help but cry out of pain and pleasure. Her eyes became wet as her body instinctively felt the entry of the foreign object inside her. Stephen felt her reluctance and slowed down, held her gently, and ground himself against her. "Does it hurt?" She sobbed and nodded. "Yes." He pulled out slightly and uneasily whispered, "I will stop." "Stephen!" "Yeah," he gasped. "It's me." He got off her and sat beside her, panting. Miranda could not speak. A white light flashed, and the world became blank. After Miranda and Stephen's untimely departure, Serena and her friends stopped playing. They went down to the restaurant to get some food. In a bad mood, Drake deliberately picked a fight with Henry. They soon started to quarrel. She looked at them silently while eating, feeding a shrimp to Jake. Jackson saw Serena do this and glanced at Mary. Mary had just picked up a piece of meat and was about to eat it. Noticing the look on Jackson's face, she immediately turned the fork around. "Come here! Ah!" Jackson was satisfied. Then he saw that Drake was looking at Henry resentfully and said, "Come! Ah!" Mortified, Henry slapped him. "Get the hell off me!" Drake collapsed on the table and cried. "It makes no sense. Why can't a guy as good-looking as me get a girlfriend? It took me a long time to find someone, but she ran away with someone else. It's too unfair." Henry snorted and drank from a bottle of beer. "I don't have a girlfriend either. I'm more handsome than you, taller than you, and stronger than you. I should find a girlfriend before you do." "How old are you? 25 years old? I'm already 27. Oh!" After the morning was over, Drake suddenly looked up. "How about we two make do? You keep the house clean and know how to cook. I don't mind that you're a guy,